everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. As you're joining us, let us know where you're joining us from, and let us know if you're new here or if you're part of the Coacharya community. If you've been in our webinars before, let us know. For those of you who are new here, just an introduction about Coacharya. We are a coach training and a leadership development firm. Anything and everything related to coaching is something you can talk to us about. And yeah, we are all glad to have you here today. We will just wait for more of you to join us and tell us where you're joining us from. So today we have a very special webinar. Why I'm saying special is because we are joined by a Coacharya alumni who is here to talk about his coaching journey. And it is always special to sort of know how their coaching journey has, come along after they have trained with us. And it helps us, keeps us energized as to why we are, here, why we do what we do. So welcome, Adam. We are glad to have you here with us today. And also
Thank you, Yamini.
Also joining us today is Coacharya co-founder Ram, who you all might, so people who are part of our community know that Ram is the Coacharya co-founder. He's also a master coach, and he will be in conversation with Adam to talk about his coaching journey. And before we get started, I will just like to take a moment of your time to get you all up to speed about the programs that we have lined up. For those of you who are looking to start your coaching journey, we have several ACC, Associate Certified Coach, or ICF Level 1 programs coming up. 16th August is where you can start your coaching journey with Shiva Subramaniam and Anshu Bhargava. Some of you will know Shiva from his program on biomimicry and systems thinking and design thinking. We have a program on 22nd August with Prakash Rao. You will know Prakash from our thought leadership groups that keep happening. We also have an in-person face-to-face program happening in Bengaluru, India, from 23rd to 25th August. So 23rd to 25th August is when the live classes or the face-to-face classes will happen. And we are very excited to be back after the pandemic, since this is a face-to-face program. And you can join this program, and there will obviously be continued support after the program as well, asynchronous content for you to get you up to speed. We have a program on a similar program, ICF Level 1 program with Ujjwal, happening on 31st August. We have a program with Tracy happening on 5th September, and another in-person program happening with Ujjwal again on 13th to 15th September. Again, this is an in-person program happening in Mumbai, India. So please feel free. Seats are limited. So, enroll. You can enroll today and, get a free consultation with a team member as well. I see that Dreyvan has also joined us. Dreyvan was the trainer who Adam trained with. He's also a PCC coach. And welcome, Dreyvan. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks. Thanks, Emily.
We have a mega systemic team coaching program also, or the ACTC, ICF ACTC program happening with not one or two, but 6 trainers. This will be led by Ram, Cindy, Pranav, who is the CEO of Coacharya, Ujjwal, Priya Ramesh, and Ramesh Sridharan. For those of you who are part of the Coacharya community, you would know, you might know these trainers, but I will also be pasting all the links on the chat box shortly for you to check out these programs and enroll today, if you wish to do that. We also have an ICF Level 2 plus ACTC program happening with Ram and Cindy, who will be leading this program. This program starts on 26th September. So yeah, that's about it. And I will now, Adam, Dreyvan, Ram, over to you.
Okay. Thanks, Yamini. Dreyvan, would you like to sort of start with between you and Adam?
Sure, Ram. Were there any questions from last time that you wanted to take on, actually?
Yeah, please. Yeah, if you could just answer some of those questions. Some people asked, at least quickly, if they want more information, we can always provide that. Yeah. Or if you have those questions, if you can ask me, I can answer some of them, and some of them you might answer.
Sure, Ram. So some of the questions that came in last time was, the first question was, do you think team coaching will take over the one-on-one coaching format? And hence, and the second question was, will spiritual coaching also take on group team coaching formats?
Okay, the simple answer is yes. We completely believe in that. And the belief has been reconfirmed by the very fact that ICF at long last, and EMCC started it much earlier, created a special credential program or credentialing pathway for team coaching called the ACTC. And when we talk about the spiritual part of it, my personal belief is that when we move from individual to team, we are also moving into a space what is called systemic, which is about a larger system. If you're following OD, if you are knowledgeable about OD, you would know that the cardinal principle there is the interaction between the individuals and the groups and teams that they work with, the smaller ecosystems, and then with a larger ecosystem, which expands into a much, much larger space, which could be something to do with the effects of climate, the ecosystems, and the way we live in this planet and the universe. And so inevitably, it moves into a space of spirituality. Now, whether this is going to be the future, I'm absolutely convinced it is, because about 6-7 years ago, when we started our first tentative footsteps into the space of team and systemic work, there was a lot of kind of skepticism in corporate circles about, no, every coach says individual coaching is the best. To be very honest, and if you really put your hands on your hearts and say, and the reason why that is because that is easier. And it's much more difficult to really work with teams. And you're not talking about really just facilitation and standing there and saying, okay, if somebody's silent, can I ask them to speak? Or if there's going to be a conflict, let me get in and solve something and so on, or in training mode. But here you're really applying the same coaching principles in terms of starting with an agreement, in terms of listening deep, in terms of creating a presence, in terms of creating awareness. And so the team can decide for itself to move forward. It's extremely, extremely complex and much more difficult than doing individual coaching. And also the fact is that individual coaching is restricted to changing the mindset of one person. I'm sure if you're a good coach, you can transform that individual. You can remove their limiting beliefs. They can help them through whatever it is. But in my experience, I found over a period of several years, about 5-6 years, when I was practicing as a coach after a long stint as a corporate leader and then in spirituality, that just it stops there. There is no trickle effect. Everybody says, okay, it is going to make a difference in the organization, but there's no evidence. And whatever ROI people are producing in terms of benefits of individual coaching upon the organization is, very honestly, it's absolutely fake. None of them is direct. It's all indirect, derivatives, and you can believe what you want. Whereas in team coaching, systemic team coaching, the terms are somewhat interchangeable with a larger definition of a larger system coming in there. And if you go through studies like Lenciani's Dysfunctions of a Team or Project Aristotle of Google, which is a very, very large study that was done by Google, spending probably over $100 million or something. It's absolutely very clear that when you work with teams in terms of high performance teams, there are certain things like creating a psychological space, interdependability, and setting goals, etc. And this allows us first to develop teams within an organization, and secondly, to be able to address very specific goals. There could be a meta goal, but there are very specific achievable SMART goals. And therefore, the organization at the end of the day is convinced that they are getting their dollars worth. And the coach is really held their feet to the fire, and they have to provided. This is one of the problems which many coaches don't want to take. And I'm being very honest, some of you will be very upset hearing this, but this is a fact. Very often the credo is that, oh, we will try our best and it's up to the client to change. Yeah, sure. But a client who comes to the coach comes with the hope that the client will change. And it's for the coach to be able to make that change. And if that change in an organizational context, if an organization paying for it, it needs to ensure that the organization is getting its money worth. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen. It's going to stay where it is. And I don't know, every month I see reports which are about how life coaching is being misused and it's all fake news and so on and so forth. Whereas in systemic team coaching, this will never happen because you will really have to deliver what you promise to deliver. And therefore, I, for one, and Coacharya, for another, as an organization, we are extremely committed to the systemic approach in team coaching, but at the same time, incorporate everything that is needed in individual coaching in that team coaching aspect. Systemic coaching doesn't mean there won't be any individual coaching. It is both individual coaching as well as team coaching. So we intersperse them and we have many modalities which we teach how we can do that. And you can get your ACTC certification as well when you go for your advanced levels, because ICF requires that you are minimum ACC coach before you go into ACC, which is why we conduct several programs which combine PCC and ACTC. And the next step, spiritual intelligence. We ran a webinar on International Coaching Week. We had people like Marshall Goldsmith, Dana Zohar, who's written on spiritual intelligence, and lady who's Lisa, who's written on faith. Amazing people who came and talked about the kind of experience that they've had in applying spirituality, which is far, far different from religion. Very often we confuse religion with spirituality. Religion, organized religion, has nothing to do with spirituality. It's actually the antonym of spirituality. So we are here talking about all people being treated as equal, with great respect, with tremendous amount of humility from the other person, and multiple other things, which are all the hallmarks of coaching anyway. So if you're a really good coach, and if you're coaching in coaching presence, with creating trust and safety and evoking the awareness of the other person and using the Rogerian principles of unconditional positive regard, empathy, generativeness, congruence, etc., authenticity, you are actually being spiritual in your coaching. So you don't have to add anything more. It's just another word to describe what you're doing already. And that is what leads into ontology, which Dreyvan has been specializing in the last few years. Many of my programs are also based on ontology. I don't label it as ontology, but what we teach are basically very similar, where you are moving into the being of the person, the spiritual being of the person, rather than just being transactional. So every single question that you ask, and that is what ICF wants you to do. They say, explore the mind of the client, the who of the client, not just the what of the client. And then the who of the client leads to the why they want to do certain things. So what is it going to help them with? What are their value systems and beliefs? And you try and figure out what the misalignment between the aspirational values that they have and the limiting beliefs that they hold them, which holds them back. And without ontological approach, you cannot be a good coach. Let me put it that way. If somebody, probably they may not be labeling it as ontology, we are calling it ontology because we believe in it. And Dreyvan goes much deeper into it in terms of integrating it. And that's why Adam is here today. So we thought we will bring in somebody who has experienced Dreyvan's coaching here to be able to talk about it along with him a little bit. And at the end of it, if time permits, I will do a short demonstration with Adam in terms of applying an ontological process with him as a coach and he as a client. Dreyvan and Adam, for you.
Sure,
We can,
a couple
of questions on virtual sessions. Yeah, I mean, you can add to that. But basically, we have 3 days, and 3 days during which we can more than comfortably cover everything that is required. It's about 9 hours a day you will have to spend with us. And we are doing a face-to-face program after a long time in Bangalore. And it's going to be much more intensive. And it's going to be much deeper, exploratory, talking about many things which very often in virtual programs we are unable to do. And during this period, we are sort of creating the foundational anchor as far as coaching competency is concerned. To this, we are adding two things. One is before the program starts, I'll have one session, virtual session, on a process called the Create Your Future, which is a very ontological process in terms of how you design your future. Very similar, in my opinion, far more powerful than the Stanford Design Your Future kind of program. And again, at the end, to help you with in terms of wrapping it up. And Dreyvan will be taking several sessions. I'm not quite sure how many sessions he can tell you, and during which he will mentor you, he will drill you deeper into the competencies so that you cover the total requirements of what ICF is, including the mentoring and the evaluation and so on. Yeah. Over to you, Dreyvan.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Ram. I think that kind of answers most of the questions over there by and large. So we'll come to you, Adam. Good to see you after such a long time. It's why don't you introduce yourself first and talk something about yourself and which part of the world you come from, what was your journey like, and all of that. Yeah.
Sure.
Just I discovered that my daughter Chaitra and Adam went to the same schools. She also lived in Brooklyn in New York, where he lives now. And then she went to NYU, did her mass communications and data at Columbia and teachers. Adam did something very, very similar. So I got an opportunity to link Chaitra to Adam after this conversation.
Yeah, we were probably at Teachers College at the same time, which is really quite a coincidence. So anyway, hello, everybody. Thank you for having me today. It's great to see you again, Dreyvan, and it's so nice to get to meet you, Ram, after hearing so much about you and talking to you a little bit. So my name is Adam. I live in Brooklyn, New York. And, in a few words, what got me to coaching, and this last year and a half has been a whirlwind, to say the least. I was in a situation for many years where I had a very nice balance of a steady job, which I've been doing now for over 20 years, which is a director of learning technology for a company based in Boston. And I was also acting on the side. And this was a very nice balance, left brain, right brain. And then, of course, COVID hit, and then the acting strike, which lasted for several months. And so essentially this right brain part of my life disappeared. And I was feeling quite distraught, more so than I would have anticipated. And my wife, who's a clinical psychotherapist, suggested that I try working with a coach. I didn't really know what coaching was. And after my first session, I thought, okay, this is for me. I have to do this. So I started, and it was interesting because it was a 6-month engagement, and we thought, okay, at the end of 6 months, maybe I'll have an idea what will sort of fill in that right brain gap, that sort of. And I would say, Ram, you mentioned spirituality. There was a spiritual component to that. I also, for many years, have been interested in Buddhism and meditation, and it's interesting how, especially in the West, I think this word spirituality is quite loaded. We always have to caveat it with, I'm not talking about religion, I'm talking about spirituality. So I started looking for coach training programs. Started looking in the US because I'm in the US, but I wanted to find something that was both a coaching foundations program, but also had, I'm going to say, a soul. And, that sounds a bit maybe quasi-religious, but something that had this deeper component to it. And I wasn't finding it in the US. And so I came across the Coacharya website, and immediately I have to say I love the logo and the symbolism of the logo. And so that kind of drew me in visually. And then I had the opportunity to speak with Smita, who was very generous and spoke with me for about an hour. And I thought, okay, this is exactly what I was looking for. And Dreyvan, I didn't know what ontology was at the time, but what I was seeking, what I was truly yearning for, was something that would combine this, coaching foundations with this deeper shall we say, spiritual element. And that's what brought me to Coacharya, and specifically the ontological training program. And I agree with what you said, Ram and Dreyvan. You mentioned this in our class multiple times. You really can't be a true coach, I think, without having gone through this type of ontological inquiry of yourself. So I'll take a pause here and see where shall we go from here?
Sure. So why don't you talk a little bit about what happened? I mean, you so strongly believe in ontology today after the courses got over, but how do you kind of attribute what ontology contributes to the coach training course?
Yeah, well, so it's interesting, one of the questions that I was sent in preparation for this event today was how the coach training program has impacted my personal growth. And there was a part of me that sort of felt like that's similar to asking, how did being born affect your life? If you catch what I'm saying. I felt like there was such a large impact, and it was so surprisingly huge. It was as if I had been living my life with my head in this kind of box. And I feel like there was an aspect of the ontological exploration that was akin to removing my head from this box and suddenly taking a look around at this vast universe that, of course, had been there the whole time, but I had the box around my head. So, I think for people who are wondering, well, what is ontology, or what is ontology from, let's say, pragmatic point of view in terms of, what is it? How do I go about it? What are we doing, with ontology? I would say answers to questions like not only who am I, but what is the meaning of my word? What is the meaning of my word to myself? And what is the meaning of my word to others? Just those very simple questions, when approached with rigor, as we really did in your class, Dreyvan, think about the nights. And of course, for me, I'm in the United States, so it was sometimes, 1 in the morning, 1 a.m. when we were having these very heady discussions, really committing to digging and exploring and discussing the true meaning of these questions. I feel like could be the topic of a 1,000-hour conversation. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of it is in the doing, but not only the doing with focus and rigor. And I feel like, again, this is where having an amazing mentor such as Dreyvan, and also our class was just wonderful. And I do want to mention something about the class in particular, Dreyvan, and this is a unique perspective. I see people are, joining from all over the world. So my experience in the class was I was the only American in the class, and I was the only white person in this class. And this was the first time in my life that I've had this experience. And everybody, I say that without exception, everybody in the class was reaching out to me to make sure I felt welcomed and to make sure there were no references that went over my head. And this, in terms of an impact on me, and I would say even my personal growth, this realization of what that felt like to be accepted in that way was profound. It also made me reflect on how many times in my life have I been, in a class situation, for example, or a group situation where, there's maybe 1 or 2 people of color in the room. And was that same level of reaching out putting effort into not only holding the space, but including that person, bringing them in. Was that there? And, you know, sadly, I would say it wasn't, you know, in my memory in the past. So anyway, that had a profound impact on me. Yeah. If I could transition from that into, you know, there's also this question of the ways in which the program has enhanced my professional development. So when I started the coach training program, I didn't tell my boss that I was doing this. This was something that I came to on my own and felt deeply personal. But I have since shared my coaching journey, and, you know, a couple months after completing our class, Dreyvan, I took the ACC exam, which was a very interesting experience. You know, I haven't taken a high stakes test like that, I think, since I took the MCATs when I was thinking about going to medical school. But I, for whatever reason, had been afraid to share this with my boss. When I finally did open up and have this experience of sharing something that felt a little bit like, I'm not sure why I was keeping it a secret, it opened up new conversations about who I am and what's important to me, and also opened the door to my boss supporting me. Not only, you know, so I thought in my mind for some reason that there might be some, you know, negative thoughts or feelings around me getting this coach certification. That's my own baggage. But what I found was the polar opposite was true. You know, my boss was thrilled and also has been supporting me in similar secondary and tertiary, you know, coaching related sort of activities around training and furthering my training and growth as a coach, even extending into this area of facilitation. So it's opened up my perception of my reality, and that's not an overstatement. It's taught me things about myself, and it's opened up new opportunities at work, professionally. And just to complete the thought, my wife, who I mentioned as a clinical psychotherapist, we have these whole new avenues of conversation open to us around this type of deep inquiry, ontology, and, you know, coaching. We talk about it all the time. Coaching is not teaching, coaching is not therapy, but there is overlap in that space of being with another person, holding space, sharing these experiences. And so, you know, my wife and I can now talk about these things in a very different way, and that's been incredibly valuable.
Yep. Thank you for giving us a deep insight about the kind of impact this journey has had on you, Adam. We have about another half an hour, and this I would really love for Ram to demonstrate his, you know, technique. And you have, you know, you being the volunteer, I leave the both of you, Ram. Happy to hand it over to you to take Adam through the process.
Yeah. Sure, Adam, we spoke a bit about it, but just before that, I have just one question. You know, I mean, whatever you were saying, and you have a background which is pretty eclectic, NYU teachers, and your wife is in psychotherapy, and you're working in L&D, and so very specifically in terms of the work that you did before and now with the additional inputs of ontological coaching, very briefly, what difference have you seen in terms of how you are able to offer value to people you coach and work with?
That's a great question. And I would say, Ram, you know, specifically, if we talk about the ICF core competencies, I have above me, right over my monitor, which is where my camera is. I have all the core competencies looking at me all throughout the day. And I will sometimes just randomly pick 7.4, you know, and I'll just read it to myself again and think about it. And then just, you know, what I've loved and has really surprised me about the process of becoming a coach is, you know, there is this level of a very tangible level of learning how to ride the bike and falling off the bike. You know, you get on the bike, you fall off the bike, you get these data points. There's something very tangible about that. But then there's also this level where all of those data points seep in and become part of our DNA eventually and come out through our being. And sometimes it's in ways, I think, when it's newer that you can notice it and articulate it. You know, like for example, I might notice that these days in life in general, I'm asking fewer yes or no questions. If a yes or no question pops into my head, I change it. I find myself asking fewer why questions. But then, you know, as this seeps in, it just becomes part of my being. And, you know, I think the ultimate goal eventually, and I'm looking at the Coacharya logo here, is to get to that zero, you know, that zero state where there is no explicit consciousness of that transformation. It just is who I am.
Thanks a lot. And just for some of those who may not be as familiar with the Coacharya logo, it was something that was developed by a very dear friend of our son. And when I sat on, he claimed that I helped him to learn meditation, and extraordinarily spiritual person. And essentially, when he asked me about what Coacharya is going to be about, what coaching is about, I said, look, it's a place where your mind-body sort of disappears and your energy predominates. And it's pure quantum science. And that is what is the first verse of one of the oldest scriptural statements in the world is Isavasya Upanishad, which says, Isavasya midam sarvam. That means everything that is here in this world, universe, matter, is energy. So when you get into the energy state, the zero on top is like the Enzo circle of Zen, where it's a no mind. You give up the mind, you're disengaged. And infinity is a result of that, which is the energy, the spirituality, that your equality, commonality with people. And also the way it's been presented by this brilliant young genius looks like as if you are sitting down in meditation. So it works in multiple ways. So we are very proud of it. Pranav has written a description of that in the Coacharya website. You can take a look at it. But right now, what we're going to do is to take this whole thing of ontology a little further into something very practical, very easy for each one of you to practice. In very simple words, one of the things that we believe is that you don't need to buy a fish if you learn how to fish. That's a very basic Zen teaching. And so here we are. I'm going to take you through a very, very simple process. It's nothing new. It's not my own. It's not original, but I've adapted it in some way. So it's not really the original process that was used. It's called the Robert Dilts Logical Levels Model. It consists of 6 questions. And I'll very briefly explain it, and it'll take probably about 15 minutes to go through the demonstration. And what I would seriously request all of you to do is to join as I'm working with Adam in that process for yourself. And rather than just sitting there as an observer and listening to it, you ask those questions for yourself and see what happens within yourself, and you will be able to see the effect of it in yourself. Okay, so it's really, and then you will learn through that process, you'll be able to learn how to fish, and you'll be able to offer that fish to other people as well. So essentially, this is a simple process in which you start with a question which asks, where are you now? And that can be answered at multiple levels. You can answer it transactionally. Adam can say, yeah, I'm sitting in a webinar answering your questions. He could say something else cognitively. This is where the thinking space I'm in, the emotional space I'm in. probably a space above that, some intuitive space I'm in, spiritual space, or whatever else that may be coming to him in an ecosystemic way. Multiple levels of energy at which this can be answered. The next question is, what are you doing now? Again, the same thing. And then a third question which says, what is it that you are skilled in or you have strengths in that makes you do what you're doing today, qualified to do what you're doing today? The question after that is, what are those values, aspirational values, and the powerful belief systems that enable you to be in that path? The question after that is, who are you? And the final question is, what's your purpose? Now, many people choose to answer it, even people whom I'm coaching, whom I have briefed like this, but I don't go into too many details. People say, oh, what am I supposed to say when you ask, where are you? I said, I have no clue. It's up to you to decide. So somebody would say, I'm in the room. Somebody will say something else. If I'm Donald Trump, I might say something else. So all that kind of a stuff. So at the end of the day, you come to the purpose. And some people say, I don't know. And somebody might say, my purpose is to save the world. I said, okay, fine. That's a point at which it's a pivoting point, it's a point of transformation. So today we may not be able to go into detail, but the question then that is asked is, okay, can you at least for the time being, for this purpose of the demonstration, I would be asking Adam, can you think about a purpose that you are here for? If you believe truly that you are born in this world for some reason, what is that purpose? And then once that point is reached, then you go back through the same things. Who should I be in order to fulfill that purpose? What should be my value systems and beliefs to be able to fulfill that person, be who I am? What should be the kind of skills and strengths that I ought to have be able to have those value systems and beliefs to be the person I am to be able to fulfill that purpose? And what should I be doing? And then where am I now? Doing all that or thinking about doing all that, manifesting the reality of what we are talking about. Just practice it. I mean, this is the way I practice it. This is the way I teach it. This is the way I look at it. It's somewhat different from probably you might find in a formal explanation of NLP or Robert Dilt, but you can adapt it the way that you want. And what I would request is, including Adam, if it's possible, Adam, if you don't need to necessarily where you're this thing, ideally it is done if you're in a standing position and you are taking for each of the questions one step forward, small step, because you're going to be limited in terms of how far you can go and still be in contact, and then walk back from that state. Is that possible for you?
Not standing, but I could move my seat a bit.
Okay, try that, whatever.
Okay.
It sort of gives you a bit of a shift if you're standing. Those of you who are in the audience who would like to practice it, if you don't have an earphone and therefore you're not constrained by that, if you can walk, try it if you're still within this listening range. So in your case, you can do that. You can go backward or move a little bit. So let me start in the interest of time, because we have limited time, about 15 minutes. My first question to you, and it's about you, for you to interpret, answer in any which way that you want. Where are you now?
On the path.
On what path is it?
It's a journey that started last year.
So the second question, what are you doing in that path, in the journey that started last year, right now?
Walking slowly.
Okay. Does it have another interpretation, walking slowly?
Progressing.
So you're progressing, you're walking in that journey, the journey that started last year, the journey of maybe 1,000 steps. You started with a few steps and walking slowly forward. The third question is, what is it that in terms of skill sets, mindset, stuff like that, strengths, that qualifies you to be on this journey, taking these steps?
My relationship to others.
Okay. So in that relationship to others through which you are moving forward in this journey, what are those aspirational values that you have in terms of where you would like to reach in this journey? And what are the other belief systems which sort of enable you to move forward? Or maybe some belief systems which perhaps are holding you back?
Openness and receptivity are conducive to forward progress, and closed-mindedness and rigidity are hindrances.
Okay. And you've said this in relation to the relationship that you feel as the primary qualification with which you are embarking on this journey. And therefore, if you put all this together, whatever you have said to me so far, where you are on a path, what are you doing? You're moving forward, slowly progressing in a journey, and you're qualified to do it. The skill sets that you possess are your desire to relate, connect with people, and then it's about openness, etc. And what could possibly hinder you from moving forward? So if you put all that together, how would you like to think of yourself as who you are?
I am a seeker.
Thank you. Just for the audience who is going through this, and I'm hoping that all of you are engaging in this process yourself, asking these questions. One could have answered it in multiple questions. Adam could have said, I'm a coach. He could have said, I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm something else in terms of a relationship. But he chose to use the word, I'm a seeker, which has no connection so far to whatever else he has said in that journey. But it's a journey, the journey of creating relationship, the strengths that he has, and through an open mind, etc. And he's a seeker. And that's extremely important. Whatever comes up for you is extremely important. So the last question in this process is, so what do you think as a seeker in terms of what you are in this journey, putting all that together, what's the purpose of your life at this point in time?
The word commitment keeps coming up.
Right. So as commitment, is there anything more specific, a commitment to what as the purpose?
It's sort of, there's sort of a constellation of things revolving around commitment, and it's this constellation that includes curiosity, discipline, continued growth, commitment, and also this shying away from or being wary of laziness, shirking responsibility. These are felt as potential dangers along the path.
Okay. I just want to leave a couple of thoughts with you, and I would like you to think about it. Take about a minute, if you will, and the same thing for other people as well. Some of the things, like you said, that it's a constellation, it's expanding, it's almost as if you are looking at a larger universe around you, and then you spoke about specifics in terms of what might hold you back. So it's a relationship between you and the larger universe. And when we talk about a purpose, we are really looking at something which makes your life fulfilled, which makes it joyful, which makes it meaningful. And there is something, a vision, a goal, whatever it is, that this is what the legacy that I would like to leave behind. So just think about it. Is there anything that is coming up for you? It may or it may not, doesn't matter. But if there's something that is coming up for you, something a little bit more specific for you, which you might like to manifest as a reality that you would like to move towards.
Yes,
Think
it's
about it. I mean, don't answer. Take about 30 seconds. Think about it. As I said, this is a pivoting point. I would like you to stop there for a moment. And then if you are really standing, you'll be walking back. You'll be taking steps backwards. So when you are taking a step backward, you always move more thoughtfully, more carefully, making sure that you are balancing and you are thinking through. So that is how I would like you to progress. So first, just spend another 30 seconds. We have that time. And then tell me whatever you want to tell me.
being in a position where I feel that the direction is towards mastery, but there is no mastery. But the direction is towards deepening this thing, which involves understanding and continued growth. But there's this component of being in service to this, the word community is popping up. Being in service to a system that is human based, or let's say being based. Being as in living beings.
Okay. I just want to leave you with this thought before I go to the next question. There was a young disciple who came to the Zen master. He said, "Sensei, can you tell me what is it that now different from the time that you were like me, now that you are a master?" The master said, "When I first came in here, I didn't know anything. And when I saw a mountain, it was just a mountain. The river was a river. The earth was the earth. But I started learning various rules, regulations, all that. The mountain was different. It had chemistry, it had physics, it had various other kinds of things. And so the river, and so with the earth. And now that I'm a master, it's back. The mountain is just a mountain. The river is a river. The earth is the earth. Everything is so simple." So that's what mastery is about. Mastery is just being back with the being, back with the nature. So in order to be that, what your purpose is, which obviously you have a much clearer idea, a vision in terms of where you would like to be, what kind of a person would you need to be, would the universe want you to be, to fulfill that purpose?
A friend.
Okay, a friend. And in order to be the friend to fulfill the purpose that you wish to fulfill, what are the kind of values and beliefs you would need to have?
Honor, commitment, honesty.
Okay. To fulfill that purpose and to be a friend and to have this honor, commitment, honesty, what are the additional resources that you need more than what you have already today that would help you reach there?
The word that immediately flashed before me was experience.
Okay. So you have to go in and experience the hero's journey of trial and error, all that, to be able to get the mindset, the skill set, all that is necessary for you to be able to go there. So once you acquire all that, leading towards that final being the friend that you are, to just get the purpose that you wish, what do you think you should be doing at this point in time, putting all this together?
Feeling grounded in exactly where I am on this path, and just to expand on that a little more, minimizing to the extent possible this kind of desire to, let's say, peak further down the path, to peak, almost feel anxious about what's to come, where I might be, and even this idea of where I should be, which I think isn't helpful.
Excellent. Excellent. So now, back to where we started. Where are you now, as different from where you started with?
On the path, but maybe a little more solidly on the path.
Excellent. So this is the process. Now, what is your own learning, having gone through these 6 questions, looked at your purpose a little more carefully? And in this particular case, I'm sure you're one of those people who has gone through it several times. Probably the process is slightly different now, coming back to where you are. What's the learning? And based on that learning, what are the kind of action you might take as a result of it?
I noticed some very strong feelings in my body, actually, of kind of let's say an awareness of energy in this part of me. And there's also this idea of roots of a tree, which sounds a little counterintuitive because on the one hand, there's the idea of a journey and forward progress, but on the other hand, there's this idea of rootedness. But it makes me think of the Ents. I don't know if you've read much Tolkien, but in the Lord of the Rings universe, you know, there are these trees called Ents that can walk. That made me think of the Ents.
Absolutely. And one thing that added to it is also you said, and not having the vision, not having the purpose, not having the just by being, that is also part of it. These are kind of polarities that occur to us. And just this process, I mean, this is something we did in about 15 odd minutes. Usually it takes about a couple of hours. And during that process, there's a lot of exactly what you said, the somatic experience in terms of what you're feeling as sensations, what is coming up for you. And you can explore a lot of associated especially when you're talking about values and beliefs in terms of the traumas, those things come up, especially when people talk about, these are some of the things that are holding me back, the closeness that you talked about, and so the openness and so on, what's holding me back. And so it can really be expanded into a somatic awareness experience as well. So unfortunately, we are pretty much at the end of the time period, and we all have hard stops. Adam, it's been absolutely wonderful. I'm hoping that others out here have derived some benefit out of this. It's a very classic ontological kind of inquiry. There are some extremely powerful NLP processes and Gestalt processes which can be used here. Another one is co-transformation by Andreas, and we use what is called the somatic awareness, where we bring in a lot of chakra energization and whatever it is. Some of these things, Dreyvan and I plan to do that in the foundational program. Even though it's foundational, some of these things will help people. But we'll be able to gladly address these. If there are specific questions, we can always hold these webinars and go into more details on these. And all of you are welcome. And some of you, if you're willing to volunteer for that, and let us know and send us your feedback, your questions. And Adam, we'll be in touch. I'll have to introduce you to Chaitra, so we'll do
Thank
that.
you.
And Yamini would like to, I'm terribly sorry because we are pretty much on the hour. I have another call that I have to move to. So I deeply apologize for not being able to be here for a longer period of time. Okay.
Well, thanks to you both so much. Thank you.
And thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Ram. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Yamini.
Thank you, Ram. Thank you, Adam. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Dreyvan.
Take care all, wherever you are. If you are in India, good night, good day. If you're in other parts of the world, including the United States, bye. Thank you very, very much, Adam. Thank you, Dreyvan. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, so much. Thank you, Dreyvan.
Bye.